Chapter 21. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Angel Translator. Endless Fantasy Translation Editor. Endless Fantasy Translation. Jiang Jin calmly said, I'm truly old and useless. I can't even protect my grandson and my granddaughter. In law when they're being bullied. Mulan was at a loss for words when she heard these words. Mu Chen looked at them coldly and barked, Mr. Jiang, see the guests out. Grandma is ill, so we won't have any visitors from now on. Yes. Mr. Jiang hurriedly replied and gestured to everyone to leave. Scared witless from the bone. Chilling aura Mu Chen was emitting, Mu Tingting and Mu Xiaoqiao did not dare to make a sound at all. When Mu Chen saw Ding Hong wanting to refute his words out of humiliation, he added indifferently, from tomorrow onward, the Mu family will conduct a thorough check of the accounts. Any business that has problems with its account will be transferred, and its assets would be redistributed. Chu Huanhuan jumped up immediately and asked anxiously, Mu Chen, what are you doing? Everything is fine. Why do you have to check the accounts? Mu Chen sneered. Why are you so anxious? Is there something wrong with my brother's accounts? No. Of course not. Chu Huanhuan stammered and forced a smile on her face. Similarly, Mulan was panicking as well. Mu Chen, what's the matter with you? We are just joking with Aunt Jiang and Song Ning. Why are you so angry? Mu Chen did not respond to Mulan. Instead, he held Jiang Jin's arm to support her as he turned to look at Song Ning and asked, weren't you planning to cook for Grandma? Then, he said to Jiang Jin, Grandma, why don't you watch Ning cook this time? Jiang Jin patted her grandson's hand in response. Meanwhile, Song Ning turned around and smiled at everyone before she said, I'm sorry, but there isn't enough rice at home, so I can't invite all of you to stay for dinner. In the kitchen. After Song Ning put on an apron, she began to work. She washed some fruits before placing them in front of the grandmother-grandson duo. Jiang Ning grinned ear to ear as she looked at Song Ning. Then, she turned and whispered to Mu Chen, Ning is a little different today. Mu Chen put a strawberry in his mouth and glanced at his grandmother as he raised an eyebrow. Jiang Jin explained in a hushed tone, yesterday, she acted more like a polite guest, but today, she was like a defensive little hedgehog. She defended you even though she knows those people are your relatives. Even if you're not around, she's capable of standing ground, she's no pushover. This girl is quick-witted and unforgiving with her words just like me. Mu Chen picked the biggest strawberry and handed it to his grandmother before he said, you have to guide her. She's very smart, but she's naive since she lacks experience. Jiang Jin accepted the strawberry. She looked at her grandson and solemnly asked, Mu Chen, are you serious about her? The corners of Mu Chen's lips lifted slightly as he looked at the strawberry. Grandma, you've said it yourself earlier, the only time we'll be separated is when one of us passes away. Jiang Jin beamed with joy, pleased by her grandson's answer. Meanwhile, Song Ning, who was busy cooking, was completely oblivious to the duo's conversation. At this moment, Yu glanced at Jiang Jin and Mu Chen before she whispered to Song Ning, young lady, you're amazing. Song Ning lowered her head, a smile could be seen on her face. You don't think I'm uncouth and rude? Yu shook her head slightly in response. Those people are the ones who are uncouth and rude. She sighed before she said again, it'd be great if Madam could stand up for herself like you did when she was bullied, Madam. Song Ning was puzzled. Then, realization dawned on her. You're referring to Mu Chen's mother. Song Ning was slightly taken aback. Mu Chen had never mentioned his parents before. It was not surprising since they had only met 2 days ago, after all. You looked at Jiang Jin and Mu Chen before she said with a sigh, young lady, the atmosphere in this home has changed since you came. It feels like the young master has come back to life. With this, the old madam's health will definitely improve soon. You're an angel sent by God to save the Mu family. Song Ning chuckled upon hearing these words. I'm an angel. You nodded fiercely. Yes, you really are. Yu's reply was rather loud this time, attracting Jiang Jin and Mu Chen's attention. Jiang Jin sighed before she asked, "You, what's the matter? Why are you making a fuss?" Yu laughed before she explained, "I think young lady is an angel. After she came here, the atmosphere in our house has changed." Jiang Jin smiled when she heard these words. Then, she glanced at her grandson as she said, "She's an angel God sent to me." Chapter 22. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Protect Translator. Endless Fantasy Translation Editor. Endless Fantasy Translation. At this moment, Mu Chen rose to his feet. Then, he said as he rolled up his sleeves, "Please teach me." "I'll help you." Jiang Jin and Yu could not help but stare at Mu Chen in amazement. Hearing this, Jiang Jin and Yu couldn't help but stare at Mu Chen. Yu stammered, "But young master, why you?" Yu did not finish her sentence. She thought to herself inwardly, "But you don't know a thing about cooking. Yu, come here." Jiang Jin hurriedly said and gestured to Yu to sit next to her in an attempt to stop Yu from speaking. Yu walked over hesitantly as she said uneasily, "Young master has never cooked before." Jiang Jin pointed at Mu Chen who was washing vegetables under Song Ning's guidance and said, "He's doing it now, right? There's a first time for everything. I bet you he's enjoying his time cooking with her. Why are you trying to stop him? I'm finally experiencing what it's like to have a harmonious family." After instructing Mu Chen to do some chores, Song Ning advised softly, "Don't invite your relatives over to the house anymore. Grandma was really angry earlier. Due to her health, it isn't good for her to get emotional." "All right." Mu Chen nodded. Song Ning hesitated slightly before she asked, "Will me offending them cause you trouble?" Mu Chen turned on the faucet and washed the vegetables as he said, "They're a problematic bunch so you're not at fault. Every once in a while, they'll come here to make trouble. Grandma and I are used to it. However, since they would affect Grandma's health, they won't be allowed to visit ever again. They asked for this." His voice was gentle when he spoke to her, it was a stark difference from the way he had spoken to his relatives earlier. Song Ning asked curiously, "Why are they so afraid of you? You still look handsome even with a scowl on your face." His hand paused for a brief second. Then, he sighed helplessly and asked, "Are you complimenting me?" She smiled faintly and nodded. Mu Chen asked in return, "Then, why did you anger them earlier? Aren't you afraid of them? My aunt is famous for being cunning." Song Ning cut the vegetables swiftly as she explained, "That's because they bullied you and Grandma. How can they bully the owner of the house they're visiting? I just can't bear it." Upon hearing this, Mu Chen solemnly declared, "Song Ning, I will protect you and Grandma in the future." Song Ning looked up at him and replied, "Well, if I deal with them next time, I'll ask for your help." Mu Chen nodded. He would definitely protect his woman. After dinner, Mu Chen asked Yu to accompany Grandma for a walk since he planned to bring Song Ning back to her house to move her possessions over. Jiang Jin was delighted and instructed Mr. Jiang to help Song Ning move all her things over. Although Mu Chen knew his grandmother wanted Song Ning to be with her every day, he did not want to keep Song Ning here against her will. He wanted to give her time to slowly adapt to life here. Hence, he convinced his grandmother to let him return to Song Ning's house without Mr. Jiang. For this, Song Ning felt grateful to him. Song Ning's home was in an old town. Her house had 2 small bedrooms and 1 living room, it was cozy and neat. Photos of Song Ning and her mother lined the TV cabinet in the living room. Song Ning's mother looked like a very gentle woman, and Song Ning greatly resembled her mother. At this moment, Song Ning opened the refrigerator and brought a bottle of water out. As she handed it to Mu Chen, she said, "I'm going to tidy up the place first. Make yourself at him." Mu Chen studied the house. There were 2 rooms, a bedroom and a study. He observed his surroundings, trying to glean information of the bits and pieces of Song Ning's life. Soon after, his eyes fell on a set of books on the shelves. Sitting conspicuously among the books was a beautifully wrapped book. The spine of the book bore its name and its author, Yi Yao by Liang Zhen. Mu Chen traced the title of the book gently with his fingers. At this moment, Song Ning's voice rang from behind him. "Have you read this book?" Without turning his head, he asked softly in return, "You've read this book?" A faint smile appeared on Song Ning's face as she reached out and took a photo album, which was placed next to the books, out. "This book changed my life." She opened the album, revealing stage photos. Back then, Yi Yao was adapted into a movie. The author also signed on as the screenwriter for the movie. It was said that the lead actress was hand-picked by the author. After the movie was released, it was a huge sensation. It won many awards that year. As a result, the lead actress also became the youngest award-winning actress. Chapter 23. You are listening at novelfull.audio. The award-winning actress, 1, translator. Endless Fantasy Translation Editor. Endless Fantasy Translation. Mu Chen's gaze fell on the first page of the album and saw a photo of the lead actress with the author who was also the screenwriter for the movie. It seemed like the lead actress was Song Ning when she was a child. Song Ning looked at Mu Chen and asked jokingly, "You didn't expect this, eh?" Mu Chen nodded in response. "Knowing you, you probably don't watch artistic movies like this. We worked on the movie for almost a year. At that time, Ms. Liang Zhen taught me to act bit by bit. Unfortunately, she died before she could see us win the awards." Song Ning's eyes returned to the photo as she spoke. Mu Chen stroked the picture gently as he said in a soft tone, "She's my mother." Song Ning was startled when she heard his confession. She stuttered, What did you say?" Mu Chen closed the photo album. He looked at the book in front of him and explained in a hoarse voice, "Liang Zhen is my mother. I haven't watched her movies. I can't even bring myself to read her books." Upon hearing these words, Song Ning stepped forward and gently hugged him from behind. After a long time, Mu Chen finally put down the album in his hand and gently placed his hands on Song Ning's arms that were wrapped around his waist. "Thank you for helping her realize her dreams." At this moment, tears were already threatening to spill from Song Ning's eyes. She removed her hands from Mu Chen's waist, causing him to turn and look at her. Seeing her reddened eyes, he sighed softly. "The world is really small." He reached out and wiped the tears from her face as he said, "Don't cry, silly. It must be my mother who brought you to me, and my mother as well. They're both watching us from the heavens," Song Ning said. She recalled the moment she saw Mu Chen standing at the door of the Civil Affairs Bureau, illuminated by the sunlight. It was as though he had descended from heaven to rescue her from the hurt of Fu Li's betrayal. Song Ning lifted her hand and wiped the tears from the corner of her eyes. However, no matter how many times she tried wiping the tears away, her tears would not stop falling. When she looked at Mu Chen, she could not help but imagine how great it would be if his mother, Liang Zhen, was still alive. Mu Chen sighed when he saw tears streaming down her face. "Don't cry. I didn't expect you to be the young award-winning actress. It's my fault for not watching the movie. After my mother passed away, I was so depressed that I didn't dare to look at the book and movie she wrote. How could I know I would miss the chance to get to know you by doing so?" Song Ning reached out and hugged Mu Chen again, overwhelmed by mixed emotions. Mu Chen returned the hug and gently patted her back, knowing that she was grieving for his mother. His heart ached, but it felt warm at the same time. After a while, he asked curiously, "Why didn't you continue acting? I heard you didn't even attend the award ceremonies." She shook her head and said, "I was really sad when your mother passed away. Without her guidance, I wouldn't have received all those awards. I felt like the awards held no meaning after she was gone. After that, my parents divorced, and my mom and I moved out. During the first 2 years of high school, I acted in movies. However, I focused on my studies during the 3rd year of high school to prepare for my college entrance examination. Mu Chen asked, puzzled, then why did you study Chinese medicine? Shouldn't you apply to join an acting school? I remember people raving about you being a talented actress. My mother said the same as well. After Song Ning calmed down, she led him to the sofa in the living room to sit down. Then, she explained, with my personality, I'm not suited for the entertainment industry. I was just lucky I met Ms. Liang who helped me successfully complete the filming of the movie. She and I had discussed this matter before as well. She respected my opinion and told me to study what I liked. However, she made me promise her that I would be the lead actress if she made another movie in the future. This was our agreement. I didn't expect that, she trailed off, she could not bring herself to finish the sentence. Upon hearing this, Mu Chen patted her hand and comforted her. It doesn't matter. My mother was very satisfied with the movie, and she had no regrets. She was also very grateful to you for helping her realize her dream. A good actress is as rare as a hen's teeth. Both of you helped each other out. Chapter 24. You are listening at novelfull.audio. The award-winning actress, 2, translator. Endless Fantasy Translation Editor. Endless Fantasy Translation. Although I haven't watched this movie, I remember the lead actress name is Ning Xiao, not Song Ning. Why did you change your name? Mu Chen asked curiously. Song Ning sighed softly when she heard his question before she explained, Ning Xia is my original name. My father cheated on my mother. The 2 years I was filming, my parents fell out. At that time, my mother who was pregnant with my younger brother suffered a miscarriage. She was disheartened by that and divorced my father after that. When she left, she didn't demand anything except to have custody over me. I hated my father and his family for being cruel to my mother, so I wanted to change my name. However, my mother wanted me to keep the surname Ning, not for my father, but for the movie. So that's why no one could find you after you retired from the entertainment industry. The movie and the lead actress became a legend and a mystery. Mu Chen finally understood what had happened. There are many rookies in the entertainment industry. The moment one leaves, another will take the stage. It wasn't difficult to quit. Moreover, I was only 15 years old at that time. After that, I was busy preparing for my college entrance examination. After entering university, I was up to my neck with my studies. Disappearing for more than a year is more than enough for people to forget me, she calmly said. Mu Chen was slightly surprised when he heard her words. After all, countless young girls flocked to enter the entertainment industry, desperate to become famous overnight and to be noticed. However, Song Ning spoke about her glorious past without any regret at all. He asked curiously, don't you miss the entertainment industry at all? Again, her tone was indifferent when she replied, there is nothing about that industry that's worth missing. I just acted out a character, and it's not my life. Mu Chen could not help but admire her when he heard her words that were wise beyond her years. After a beat, he said, I remember the cast and the backstage crew were interviewed. You're the only one who was not interviewed. If you were, I would have remembered you. Well, I didn't even participate in the promotional activities of the movie. I quit the moment I decided to retire so that I won't hurt my fans so much. I didn't want them to be sad since I felt grateful toward them, Song Ning said. All of a sudden, Mu Chen understood why his mother had liked the girl, Ning Xia, so much. Mu Chen, how did Ms. Liang Zhen pass away? This matter was also a mystery in the entertainment industry. There were 2 sensational mysteries in the entertainment industry at that time. One was the retirement of the youngest award-winning actress, Ning Xia, and the other was the accidental death of Liang Zhen, an incredibly talented author and screenwriter. After Song Ning went to university and settled down, she discovered all traces of Liang Zhen seemed to have vanished into thin air when she tried to look for Liang Zhen. She knew Liang Zhen had to come from a wealthy family since her son was the main investor of the movie. No matter how hard she tried, she could not find Liang Zhen. At this moment, she felt the world was really small. In the past, she thought Liang Zhen would only exist in her memories. Who knew she would meet Liang Zhen's son? Meanwhile, Mu Chen seemed to have fallen into a daze when he heard Song Ning's question. It was as though he was caught in memories of the past. After a moment, he clenched his hands tightly and said, "My mother passed away in a car accident. My mother and aunt were twin sisters. The person who was supposed to marry my father should be my aunt, but my aunt didn't want to be a part of a marriage of convenience, so she fled. In the end, my grandpa and grandmother married my mother to my father since my mother and my aunt looked really similar. Fortunately, my father fell in love with my mother, and my grandmother treated my mother like her biological daughter. However, after I was born, my father fell out of love with my mother and began to party a lot. For that reason, my mother fell into depression. It was during that time that she wrote Yi Yao. She devoted all her time and effort to the book. Using the book as emotional support, she was getting better until Chapter 25. You are listening at novelfull.audio. No translator. Endless Fantasy Translation Editor. Endless Fantasy Translation. Mu Chen took a deep breath and tried to calm down before he continued to say, "This went on until she found out about my dad's new mistress. After that, my dad insisted on divorcing my mom. Grandma didn't agree, so my dad kept making trouble. It was then that my mom had a relapse of depression. The last straw that broke the camel's back was when she found out my father's mistress was her identical twin sister. That crushed her and led her to jump into the sea." Song Ning held Mu Chen's hand as she listened to him recount his tragic past. Lost in the memories of the past, Mu Chen buried his face in the palms of his hands before he wiped the tears that spilled down his face. Song Ning reached out and hugged him. They both had tragic pasts, so she empathized with him. It was by chance that she found out about his past. She did not expect him to discover her secret when he came over to help her to move, and in turn, she also discovered his secret. What a surprise that two people who married on impulse were connected in such a way since a long time ago. It was truly a small world. After they left Song Ning's house, she brought Mu Chen to her mother's embroidery shop. It was located not far from Song Ning's house and the Mu Group. The building had 2 floors, the retail shop was on the first floor while the operation room and the staff dormitory were on the second floor. Song Ning said, slightly embarrassed, "Since the business hasn't been doing very well, many of our embroiderers have been poached by other businesses. Those who stayed are either acquainted with my mother or have mediocre skills, that's why they're reluctant to leave. I don't know how to run a business, so I'm afraid I'll ruin the fruits of her labor." She was most concerned about and saddened by this matter. Mu Chen studied every nook and cranny on the 2 floors before he took Song Ning's hand and confidently said, "Don't worry, I'm here to help you. Everything will be fine." Although the duo only knew each other for 2 days, it felt as though they had known each other for half a lifetime. Who knew 2 people who seemed to have no intersection with each other would be so inextricably linked? In the Cloudy Peak Villa. Jiang Jin had not slept, she was waiting for the duo to return. When Jiang Jin saw the small luggage Song Ning brought with her, a sad expression appeared on her face as she asked, "Why didn't you move all your belongings here? This is your home now, right? Ning, are you planning to leave us?" Song Ning laughed before she replied, "Grandma, I won't leave if you obediently take your medicine and receive the necessary treatments." As though she did not hear Song Ning's words, Jiang Jin glanced at her grandson and said bitterly, "Ning, don't worry. If Mu Chen dares to treat you badly, I'll skin him alive." Mu Chen put his hands around Song Ning's shoulders before he sighed and said with a helpless expression on his face, "I'll have to rely on you from now on. I have no status at all in this house." Song Ning smiled. The playful interaction between Mu Chen and Jiang Jin really warmed her heart. At this moment, she recalled something and quickly brought out the silk kerchief she took out from the safe earlier and presented it to Jiang Jin. Upon seeing this, Jiang Jin asked in surprise, Ning, where did you buy this? Based on the embroidery, if I'm not mistaken, it's made by Zhuang Yi. Upon hearing these words, it was Song Ning and Mu Chen's turn to feel shocked. Grandma, do you know Zhuang Yi? Mu Chen asked curiously. Jiang Jin stroked the kerchief and said, of course. If she didn't pass away at such a young age, I would have done everything I could to promote her craft. It's part of the Chinese culture after all. Ning, where did you buy this? I can tell it's genuine and that it's embroidered by Zhuang Yi. Look, the stitch at this corner is embroidered using a very unique method. No one else can imitate this even if they tried. Mu Chen and Song Ning stared at Jiang Jin, still in shock. When Jiang Jin lifted her head, she finally noticed the duo's strange reaction. She asked, what's wrong? Tears threatened to spill out of Song Ning's eyes as she said, Grandma, Zhuang Yi is my mother. Jiang Jin rose to her feet in shock. What did you say? Song Ning repeated her words with a smile on her face, Grandma, I'm Zhuang Yi's daughter. The kerchief in your hand is my mother's work. Chapter 26. You are listening at NovelFull.audio. The Mu Family Translator. Endless Fantasy Translation Editor. Endless Fantasy Translation. Ning, is this true? You're really Zhuang Yi's daughter. Jiang Jin was surprised and delighted. She looked at Song Ning from head to toe as though she was seeing Song Ning for the first time. Song Ning and Mu Chen looked at each other in confusion. Without an explanation, Jiang Jin grabbed Song Ning's hand and led her to the study as she said, come on, let me show you something. In Jiang Jin's study, there was a delicately framed picture of 8 horses on the wall behind the desk. However, what was framed was not a painting but a piece of embroidery. As tears threatened to spill from her eyes, Song Ning said, this is my mother's embroidery. She took more than 10 months to finish it before she auctioned it off for charity. The proceeds from the auctions were donated to a few children with congenital heart disease. Grandma, you were the one who bought the embroidery. Jiang Jin nodded. Your mother is a very kind person. The value of this piece of embroidery is much higher than the auction price. I felt bad about it, so I visited your mother. However, she told me she was grateful that I bought her embroidery and even gave me a double-sided embroidered fan. My mother said you later donated another 100,000 to those children. Song Ning held Jiang Jin's hand. Jiang Jin nodded and said with a smile, your mother truly touched my heart. It's a pity that I lost contact with her because I was busy with some family affairs and my health. I didn't know you're Zhuang Yi's daughter. You even became my granddaughter. Law. What a coincidence. This is great. Song Ning looked at her mother's embroidery as emotions threatened to overwhelm her heart. Mother, you're always by my side no matter where I go. Song Ning felt today's emotional roller coaster ride was much more intense than yesterday. Yesterday, she married Mu Chen, who was a stranger, because they needed each other's help. Today, they accidentally discovered there were so many connections between them. Fate was really mysterious. Life was filled with so many surprises and uncertainties. However, it was also life's unpredictability that gave it meaning. The next morning. As soon as Song Ning walked into the hospital, she discovered many people were staring at her. As she walked toward her department, it did not stop. Colleagues, those she knew and those she did not know, would look at her furtively and whisper among themselves. She was confused why everyone's attention seemed to be on her today. As soon as Song Ning entered the office, Jia Hui hurriedly rose to her feet and lunged at Song Ning as she said, Ning, hurry up and explain to me. Who's that man yesterday? Song Ning dodged Jia Hui's sumo attack and walked straight to her seat. Jia Hui hurried after Song Ning and sat down in front of Song Ning's desk. Rumors are flying in the hospital that you're dating a big shot. Do you know who that big shot is? Song Ning did not reply. She knew once Jiahui started speaking, Jiahui would go on regardless of her response. He's the CEO of the Mu Group. Do you know the Mu Group? The Mu Group is a multinational company, and it has businesses in almost every industry. Our hospital is owned by them. That big shot is the favorite grandson of the chairwoman of the Mu Group. Ning, he's Mu Chen. He told me his name yesterday. Jiahui said excitedly. On the contrary, Song Ning calmly turned on the computer and searched for the necessary document, ignoring her friend's words. Despite her calm exterior, she was inwardly shaken. Although she knew the Mu family was well off, she did not expect them to be so wealthy and successful. In hindsight, she should have known this. After all, there was no way ordinary folks would be able to live in Cloudy Peak Villa. Jiang Jin and Mu Chen were not arrogant at all despite their status and wealth. Jiang Jin was rather cute, and she always clung to Song Ning and Mu Chen and would even act childishly to her, Mu Chen, and you. She would be delighted just by eating delicious food. It was difficult to imagine she was the chairwoman of a multinational company. When Song Ning thought of Jiang Jin, she could not help but smile. Chapter 27. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Rumors Translator. Endless Fantasy Translation Editor. Endless Fantasy Translation. Hey, Ning, stop daydreaming. Did you hear what I said? And Jiahui shook Song Ning's shoulders. No, Song Ning replied frankly. And Jiahui said through gritted teeth, Song Ning. How can you break my heart like this? Really? Please extend your hand and let me check your pulse. I want to know what the pulse of a broken-hearted person is like, Song Ning calmly replied. And Jiahui said with a dejected expression, how can you call yourself my good friend? Is this how you treat your good friend? What's wrong? Is there an official guide to how one should treat their good friend? Song Ning raised an eyebrow as she continued typing, unaffected by Jiahui's words. Song Ning, I'm serious. Rumors are spreading like a wildfire in the hospital now. People are saying you're unscrupulous and that you were dating two rich men at the same time. Jiahui said impatiently when she saw Song Ning's indifference. Upon hearing these words, Song Ning's fingers finally stopped moving. She asked, two rich men. Who's the other rich man they're talking about? Fu Lu. Jiahui reached to poke Song Ning with her index finger. Song Ning leaned back to avoid Jiahui's finger silently. As it turned out, everyone thought Fu Lu was a rich man. She furrowed her brows slightly as she asked in confusion, don't they know Fu Lu is dating Feng Man? Jiahui rolled her eyes as she said exasperatedly, do you still not understand? Everyone thinks you're a temptress who preys on wealthy men. Song Ning smiled. What do you think then? Of course I don't think so. However, I don't know how to explain it to them. Jiahui said angrily. Why should you explain anything? Song Ning asked quietly. Because, and Jiahui was at a loss for words. She looked at Song Ning silently. Song Ning asked gleefully, why should you explain anything to those people? And Jiahui looked at Song Ning before she sighed. Song Ning, if I were a man, I'd fall in love with you as well. She threw her hands up with a helpless expression as she said, you're right. Why should I explain anything to those nosy people? However, Song Ning, aren't you angry? They don't even know you, but they're calling you nasty names just because of some unfounded rumors. Are you really not angry at all? Song Ning raised her hand and pointed at the computer. I only care if the professor is angry with me. What do those people have to do with me? I'm not a temptress or an easy woman. However, I can't possibly explain myself to everyone. Moreover, people will always believe what they want to believe, most people are not interested in the truth. After all, the truth doesn't secrete dopamine and give them excitement. So why should I do something so meaningless like explaining myself to them? Upon hearing Song Ning's words, Jiehui's expression turned solemn as she placed a hand on Song Ning's shoulder and asked in an equally solemn tone, "Are you a nun who traveled here from ancient times? How can you be so calm? How can you be so open-minded? You're in your 20s, but you have a 2000-year-old soul. I truly admire you. Song Ning, I'm your fan." Song Ning smiled. Anyone who had experienced life and death, loss of loved ones, wealth and poverty, and love and hatred would be able to remain calm. In fact, she wanted to be like Jiehui, who felt angry whenever she was mistreated. Alas, her passionate and reckless self was long gone. However, when she thought about Mu Chen, warmth would suffuse her heart. She had agreed to Mu Chen's request. They would try to fall in love with each other and give their hearts to each other. This was the only impulsive thing she had done in a long time. When Song Ning regained her senses, she said, "And Jiehui, as your idol, I'd like to remind you that the professor has graded our homework and has sent it back to us. If you don't want to be scolded during class, you better have a look at it now." Song Ning's words pulled Jiehui back to reality and sent her running back to her desk. However, she did not forget her promise to Mu Chen yesterday. Did he not say he would not let Song Ning be wronged? She thought to herself, "Come on then. Save your woman from these troubles and show me what you can do." Chapter 28. You are listening at NovelFull.audio. Troublemaker Translator. Endless Fantasy Translation Editor. Endless Fantasy Translation. Song Ning did not have to shadow Professor Li today. Her task was to complete the homework assigned by the professor and sort out documents and files of patients' diagnoses. With no other distractions, her work went smoothly. At noon, she finally stopped working. She stretched her waist as she asked, "Jiehui, are you done?" Song Ning, "Shut up. Don't bother me." And Jiehui said gruffly. Song Ning chuckled. She went to the pantry with the intention of making 2 cups of coffee to boost their energies. When she was coming out of the pantry, she saw Feng Man, who was surrounded by a group of young nurses in a grand manner. Song Ning frowned. She did not reply to Feng Man's harassment on WeChat, nor did she receive a proper explanation from Fu Lu. Over the years, she had changed and protected herself very well. Her guard was always up so no one could hurt her. In her opinion, no one deserved her sadness except for her mother. Not even Fu Lu, whom her mother thought she could entrust her daughter to and shield her daughter from the storm, could make her sad. Her mother did not know that Fu Lu would be the one to bring the storm to her. As for Feng Man, although she felt disappointed, she did not lose sleep over Feng Man. She did not want to waste her sadness or emotions on Feng Man at all, nor did she harbor intentions of seeking revenge. As the saying went, if one was bitten by a mad dog, one wouldn't try to seek revenge from the mad dog. Jiehui did not understand this, so she did not understand why Song Ning was so calm. Song Ning thought that perhaps Mu Chen was right. The most important thing in a relationship was to give each other their hearts. Fu Lu did not give her his heart, nor did she give him her heart. This meant that they did not owe each other anything. Alas, not everyone shared the same thoughts as Song Ning. Feng Man, who was making her way over, obviously did not think that way. Song Ning, who was holding 2 cups of coffee, looked at Feng Man, whose eyes were red and swollen, and wondered what Feng Man was plotting now. A young nurse by Feng Man's side narrowed her eyes and said unhappily, drinking coffee. "It seems like you're in a good mood. I really pity Feng Man, she didn't sleep the entire night." Song Ning looked at the cups of coffee in her hands before she looked at Feng Man. She did not understand the meaning behind the young nurse's words. Look at her. She likes to stay silent so the male doctors and teachers think she's cute. Men are stupid, but she can't fool us women. Ah, what a cunning vixen. Song Ning, I really didn't know you're such a terrible woman. You secretly hooked up with another rich man and dumped Mr. Fu, and yet, you don't allow Mr. Fu and Feng Man to have a happy relationship. Tell us, did you invite President Lin and the others over yesterday to ruin Man's birthday? Those roses were carefully selected by Mr. Fu for Man. However, because of you, the roses had to be thrown away. Don't you think you're too cruel? That's right. Song Ning, I didn't expect you to be a scheming B*tch. Not only are you a jealous woman, but you're greedy as well. You're really too vicious. A vicious and promiscuous woman like you is an embarrassment to Professor Li. That's right. We should report her to Professor Li. Don't let her tarnish Professor Li's reputation. How can we accept such useless students? All of the women attacked with words covered with thorns one after another. No, to be precise, only 6 women spoke up. Feng Man did not speak at all, only weeping silently. Song Ning was confused. Why was Feng Man crying? She looked at Jiahui's latte in her left hand and her Americano in her right hand as she wondered which of them she should throw at the women to shut them up. While Song Ning was contemplating this matter, someone snatched the cup of coffee in her right hand. She looked up and saw the cup of coffee was now in Jiahui's hand. Following that, Song Ning heard the women in front of her screaming one after another. Chapter 29. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Confrontation Translator. Endless Fantasy Translation Editor. Endless Fantasy Translation. Song Ning sighed inwardly. Jiahui is going to say that I'm slow on the draw again. As expected, and Jiahui glared at Song Ning with her big and round eyes as she scolded, Song Ning, are you a fool? Why are you just standing still when they're scolding you like this? Is there a need for you to be polite to this group of idiots? Song Ning thought to herself, I wasn't planning on being polite. However, you've already acted before I had a chance to act. Hey! How can you splash the coffee on us? You stained my uniform. My makeup is ruined. Hey, isn't this in Jiahui? What's the matter? You think you're hot stuff just because your father is the principal. Do you think you can do whatever you want? And Jiahui, you've crossed the line. We are going to lodge a complaint against you. Just you wait. Let's see if your father punishes you. All of a sudden, the women began screaming again. The remaining cup of coffee was splashed on the group of women. This time none of them were spared. Song Ning said tonelessly, what's the matter? Didn't you come here to pick a fight? You call it justice when you act out, but when we act, you say we're breaking the law. The women fell silent. Song Ning had always been courteous and modest, but she maintained an appropriate distance from everyone, except for Jiahui. Even Feng Man was not an exception when they were on good terms. In fact, Feng Man was the one who took the initiative to befriend her and clung to her back then. Although Song Ning was quiet, her presence was hard to ignore. When she spoke, she would attract everyone's attention. This moment was a good example. As Song Ning swept her gaze across the crowd, everyone could not help but fall silent. After a while, she called out, Feng Man. Stunned, Feng Man began to sob harder. Ning, I'm sorry, I know you're upset Fu Lu chose me in the end. I know we deserve whatever you throw at us. I didn't him to fall in love with me as well. This is all my fault. I shouldn't have tried to help when you and Fu Lu were having trouble in your relationship. I shouldn't have helped Fu Lu. I didn't expect him to fall for me. Jiahui's face turned red from anger. She pointed at Feng Man. You're too shameless. Upon hearing this, the young woman standing next to Feng Man stepped forward to shield Feng Man and retorted, who are you calling shameless? Song Ning is the shameless one. Song Ning, the person Fu Lu likes is not you. He likes Man. You relied on the agreement between your family and Fu Li's mother to keep him with you while you cheated on him. Then, when you saw Fu Lu treating Man so well, you even came to stir up trouble. What do you want? Do you really want to date two men at the same time? Why don't you look at yourself in the mirror first? Song Ning's expression remained calm as she looked at Feng Man and her friends. She said in an even tone, Feng Man, your relationship with Fu Lu has nothing to do with me. Please make it clear to the people in front of you. Don't just hide behind them. I'm not interested in Fu Lu, and I have no interest in destroying your relationship. Then, Song Ning brought her phone out of her pocket and shook it in front of Feng Man, mind your behavior. If you don't make things clear, I'll publish the video and photos you sent to me. You should know that I'm a woman of my words. Song Ning's words made Feng Man's face turn pale. Song Ning, you be *tch. Song Ning cocked an eyebrow and looked at the women in front of her before she asked, what's the matter? Are you afraid? Why didn't you think about that before you came here? Why did you incite these people to cause trouble on your behalf? What's your purpose? Do you want to embarrass me or yourself? Or do you really treat them as fools? Shocked by Song Ning's domineering aura, Feng Man could not help but take 2 steps back. Man, don't be afraid of her. This woman is too vicious. There's no doubt she's responsible for yesterday's incident. Usually, no one cares if we receive flowers. However, all of a sudden, we had to throw your flowers away. Feng Man's friend said indignantly. Meanwhile, An Jiahui was satisfied with Song Ning's domineering attitude. With this, her anger had been extinguished. Chapter 30. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Support translator. Endless Fantasy Translation Editor. Endless Fantasy Translation. An Jiahui crossed her arms and watched the excitement, admiring her idol. Then, she said mockingly, Hey, you there, did you come to help Feng Man or to harm Feng Man? Look, Feng Man has stepped back. She's afraid Song Ning will reveal evidence and expose the fact that she's using all of you. And yet, you persist in taking her side. You're all as stupid as pigs. Who did you call a pig? Feng Man's friend hissed. The person who replied to me. An Jiahui retorted smugly. Feng Man pulled the sleeves of her friend's shirt and said pitifully, Nan, forget it. We can't beat them. They're Professor Li's students, so we can't afford to offend them. Let's go. Jiahui grew angry again when she heard these words. Hey, Feng Man, can you stop playing the victim? You took the initiative to look for trouble with Feng Man, but now that you're about to be exposed, you still have the audacity to act like a victim. What does our conflict have to do with Professor Li? Who do you think you are? There's no need for us to ask for Professor Li's help to deal with small fries like you. Girl, who do you need help dealing with? A gentle voice rang in the air all of a sudden. Everyone instinctively turned to look at the owner of the voice. Professor Li stood in the corridor with 2 students. Director Lin, Secretary Zhang, and a handsome man stood behind him. The young nurses were shocked. Was the handsome man not the CEO of the Mu Group? He was the one who wanted to donate equipment for the nurse station yesterday. Professor Li looked at them and asked with a smile, what's the matter? Why are your uniforms stained? Secretary Zhang glanced at the cups in Song Ning and Jiahui's hands and immediately understood what had happened. He, naturally, did not dare to provoke An Jiahui since her father was the principal of N Medical University. However, Song Ning did not have such connections. Therefore, he scolded, Song Ning. What's the matter with you? This is a hospital, not a gangster hideout. You're a medical student, not a gangster. How can you splash your colleagues with coffee? Hurry up and apologize to everyone. Secretary Zhang's words, naturally, drew everyone's attention. Before An Jiahui could speak up, Professor Li's smile vanished as he said, Secretary Zhang, you must be mistaken. I understand my student very well. Song Ning is not a bully. Seeing that they had a supporter, Feng Man's friend said, Professor Li, don't be fooled by this vixen. She is a double-faced B***tch. She's good at seducing men. As she spoke, her eyes darted to Mu Chen. Clearly, these words were meant for him. She wanted to let the CEO of the Mu Group know that Song Ning was a vicious woman. After being refuted by Professor Li, Secretary Zhang was upset and vented his anger on Song Ning. Song Ning, what kind of shameful things did you do? At this moment, a low voice rang from behind Secretary Zhang. Secretary Zhang, why do you think Song Ning is at fault? Mu Chen looked at Song Ning, who was standing calmly at the side even though she was being picked on, and felt a pang of pain in his heart. What did she go through to have developed such a tough front? Although she was independent, her figure seemed so lonely standing in the midst of a crowd. Secretary Zhang was taken aback when he heard Mu Chen's words. He panicked and quickly said in an ingratiating tone, Mr. Mu, there's always drama around women. Song Ning has always looked down on others because of her good grades. There's no doubt she's the bully. She has the qualifications to look down on others, Mu Chen said, directly cutting off Secretary Zhang's words. Then, he stepped forward and walked toward Song Ning. When Mu Chen stood in front of her, he reached out and tucked her hair behind her ears. His eyes softened when he saw the tips of her ears turned red. The corners of his lips could not help but rise. Song Ning asked softly, feeling slightly uncomfortable, why are you here? I'm here to support you, Mu Chen replied. Although his voice was not loud, everyone clearly heard his words.